This is Geometry Exam Review, working with Unit 10. We're going to name the 3D shape. It has 5 sides, so it's a pentagon. So we call it a Pentagonal Prism. It's a prism because all the sides are rectangles. It's a pentagon because it has 5 sides. So tell whether it is a polyhedron. This would be a polyhedron because the sides are all made of polygons. And the shape that would be formed by a cross-section parallel to the base would be the same shape as the base, so it'll be a pentagon. So next we have a sphere, and it is not a polyhedron because it is not made up of polygons. And if you do a cross section, you would form a circle. Here you name the shape by the base. This is a pyramid. We name it by the base. You could call this a triangular prism. Alright, one sec. Some would call it a tetrahedron. The cross section would be a triangle. And yes, this is a polyhedron. We're going to find the volume of the shape. So what we're noticing is the base would be the triangle. So to find the area of the triangle, we need to know the base, which we know, and we need to know the height. We know the hypotenuse, so we're going to have to do a Pythagorean Theorem. So 40 squared equals 32 squared plus this height of the triangle, not the height of the prism, but the height of the triangle. And 32 squared is 1024. And we subtract our 1024. We have our 1600 minus 1024 gives us 576. And you'll see that when we take the square root, when you take the square root of our previous answer, we get 24. So this height is 24. So now we're going to find the area of the base. So the volume is going to be capital B times H. Capital B is the area of the base. So the area of this triangle, which is the base, is 32 times 24. So it's half of 32 times 24. times the height. Now the height of the prism is actually the distance between the triangles, between the bases, and that's the 20. So we have half of 32 times 24 we can put our parenthesis there if we wish, times 20. And we got 7,680. That would be meters squared. Here we have a cylinder. The diameter is 16.6. So the radius is going to be 8.3. And that's a number we're going to need because the volume, again, it's base times height. Capital B stands for the area of the base, which is a circle. So you need the formula for the area of a circle. You probably need this on your note card. Pi r squared, that's the area of the circle. Then we times that by the height because the circle goes up to the top. So the volume is going to be pi 8.3 squared times 5 because the height is the distance between the circles. So this is pi times r squared times the height. 1082.12. Now this one's a little bit different. We know what the height of this cone is, but we do not know what the radius is. The volume should be 1/3 the area of the base times the height, which in this case that is pi r squared times the height. Well, we need to know what r is. So we're going to take this right triangle. It has an angle of 40 and an opposite side of 6.8, and we're going to use that to find the radius. So that's going to be tangent of 40 equals 6.8 divided by x over 1 and cross multiply. We're going to switch these two, so x equals 6.8 divided by tangent of 40. So you do need to be sure that you're in degree mode if you're going to do tangent or sine or cosine for that matter. So we're going to take 6.8 and divide by tangent of 40. That gives us that radius length of 8.10. So now we can find the volume, which is 1/3 pi r squared times the height, 6.8. So we're going to have to do pi times 1.8 squared times 6.8, and then we divide that by 3. The other way you could do that is to use parentheses, say that it's 1/3 pi r squared times the height. Either way would work. .467.21, and that would be centimeters squared. Last page. Here we have a rectangular or a square prism. The base is pretty much a square. What we're going to have to do is two words at once. We have a pyramid and we have a prism. So we're going to add those two together. So this is going to be 1/3 the area of the base, which is 8 by 8. And then we have the height of the pyramid, which is 6. The prism would be the area of the base times the height of the prism so now we have 1/3 times 8 times 8 times 6. That gives us 128. And here we have 8 times 8 times 5. Gives us 320. So add those together, we get 458. And those are meters cubed. Cubic meters. Alright, here we have tick marks showing us that those are the same. We have right angles showing it's a square base. So our volume is going to be 1/3 the base times the height. So the volume is going to be 1/3 7.42 squared, because the area of the base is 7.42 on both sides, times our height, which is 9.25. So this should be 1 divided by 3. And then we're 7.42 squared times our 9.25. You should be following along with your calculator as well. Oh boy, okay. Here, these are cubic. Cubic because we're doing volume. I just realized back here on our previous problems, I had done squared like it was area. This is volume. These have to be cubed. Alright, here's a sphere. You may want this on your note card. 4/3 pi r cubed is the formula for volume. This diameter equals 6, so the radius is going to be 3. So volume equals 4/3 pi 3 cubed. So that is 4/3 pi times 27. You could divide the 27 by the 3, and you get 4 pi times 9, which is 36 pi. That would be like an exact answer. We're going to say, we could even test it all the way out here and say that 4/3 times pi times 3 cubed gives us that amount, which is the same thing as 36 pi. Well, not 36e, my bad, 36 pi. And there's our 113, same number. That's 113.10. And this is feet cube, cubic feet. Alright, now notice here, this is a slant height. We want the actual height. So we're going to have to do the Pythagorean Theorem. 10 squared equals 6 squared plus our height squared. So 100 equals 36 plus h squared. Subtract this across. We get 64 equals h squared. So h is going to be 8. So if you look closely, this would have been a 3, 4, 5. 3 times 2, 4 times 2, and 5 times 2. 3, 4, 5 triangle. Could have been a quick way to realize that. But we calculated what the height was. So now our volume is 1/3 pi times r squared times a height, which is 8. So we're 1/3 pi times r squared times our height. And this is cubic feet. Here we have a composite. We have a cylinder, plus we have half a sphere. We could call that a hemisphere. So the radius is 6. So our cylinder is pi 6 squared times the height of the cylinder is 4. And our sphere would be 4/3 pi r cubed. So this is 6 squared times 4, 144. This is 6 cubed times 4/3 times a half. That's 144. They both have pi, so that's 288 pi. That would be like your exact answer. But we would want, when we times that by 2, because we have 2 of them, and times that by pi, we have 904. So we could type in the whole thing just to be sure that we're doing all of our individual math correctly. We said pi times 6 squared times 4 plus half of our 4/3 times pi times 6 cubed. And we still get that same 904 number. Find the radius of a sphere. So the volume of this sphere is going to be, there's our formula, is 100 pi. We want to know what the radius is, so we have to solve for r. So first we're going to multiply by 3. We're going to divide by 4 pi. The pi's crossed off. We take our 300 and divide that by 4. We see we have 75. And then we can take the cubed root. Now in our graphing calculator, you need to go to the math button, and that gives us our cubed root right there, which is number 4. We put 75 in there, and we find out that, so our radius is 4.22, and those would be feet. Not feet cubed, because it's not a volume, it's a length. Some factoring. This is the difference of two squares. So you can take the square root of x squared. You can take the square root of the 49. So this is x minus 7, x plus 7. This one is just a typical trinomial being factored. We have to watch that the leading coefficient is just a 1. If that's our case, then we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to be negative 27, that add to be negative 6. And we know that that's going to be 3 and negative 9. Well, we have x plus 3 and x minus 9. You can drop them right into the parentheses as long as your leading coefficient is a 1. Here, our leading coefficient is not a 1. So when we figure out our table, we have to do 4 times 2, which is 8. That adds to be 9. That's going to be 1 and 8. Now, what can we do with this 1 and 8? We can use factor by grouping. We bring down our 4x squared, we bring down our 2, and we put these two values in between as 1x and 8x. Then we will factor out of the two groups. If I factor out an x, I'm going to have 4x left over. If I factor out an x, I'm just going to have the 1 left over. Bring down my sign. I can factor out a 2. If I factor out a 2 from there, take half of it, it's going to leave me with a 4x. Take half of it, it's going to leave me with a 1. Notice that the parentheses are exactly the same. They have to be the same. So my answer is x plus 2 and 4x plus 1. Then we have this last one. Notice that all the numbers are even, so that means that we can do a GCF first. We can factor out our 2, so it leaves us with x squared plus 3x minus 10, and we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 10 and add to be 3. Notice the leading number here is a 1, so I don't have to. You can always say this number, whatever's in front of the x squared, times 10. We could have done 20, but I'm doing half that amount. I factored out the 2. So we know that -1 and 10, -2 and 5. There's my 3. So I know I'm going to have x minus 2, x plus 5. And just as a reminder, on the back of your review has all the answers. So if you find that I did anything crazy, you just let me know. Good luck.